The video game adaptation has been a sore subject for many. It would be fun to see so many of our favorite games on the big screen, but most of the time they were infamous for being unfaithful, confusing, and well, just generally bad. I mean, you are effectively bringing a game to life without the actual game, and the main appeal is lost immediately. However, recently there's been a huge resurgence of video game adaptations and even a few blockbusters. It's actually kinda amazing to see how things changed. People see much more faithful adaptations of the games they love that carry their spirit. Hell, I talked a lot about the Mario movie a while ago, and I'm super excited for the upcoming Fallout series, which I'll definitely do a video on when it comes out. But I think there's kind of an unsung hero when it comes to this, and that's Detective Pikachu. I think this was one of the first video game adaptations that came out recently that really showed promise and that you can have a popular game franchise work as a movie. And I don't count the Pokemon anime movies since those are movies around the anime continuity with its own characters based off the games, and not exactly a standalone movie adaptation of a game. But Detective Pikachu tried to have the work from the ground up, and I'd argue it really deserves more attention than it gets. I think it might have been a pioneer here. So let's get into the Detective Pikachu movie and see how it's held up. Now you might wonder, why the Detective Pikachu game of all things? Wouldn't the main series make more sense? Now I'd seriously argue against that. The game is barely had a story, and it's all about choice and what you want to do to make your team, and you can't do that in a movie. Not to mention how much I had to condense everything down, it was just the best choice. The Pokemon company also apparently didn't want to have another movie in the anime verse and start fresh. And, while they did the Detective Pikachu spin-off, weirdly enough its plot can work and be adapted to a movie with enough changes. So it was kind of the perfect choice. Though because the Detective Pikachu spin-off is pretty obscure and kind of laughable in concept, the existence of this movie was a surprise. Like I remember when the first trailer was dropped out of nowhere and the internet kinda went crazy. Even I did, like I was so surprised to see an actual Pokemon movie, and a live action one at that. And of Detective Pikachu of all things. But, I gotta say it got my attention. And I was pretty high to see real, authentic looking Pokemon on the big screen. And believe me, I was there in the opening. And yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of it. But I want to go in through all of it. Enough preamble. Also, sorry I couldn't make a Pokemon persona, I didn't have the time. Now, the story is based on the Detective Pikachu game, but it's pretty different. The only real connections are a boy named Tim in Rhyme City, with a talking Pikachu only he can hear, to solve mysteries, and Pokemon randomly going crazy. And yeah, things are already pretty different. Tim is an adult, or well close to one, played by that one guy known for being insanely annoying in Jurassic World, but it's thankfully so much better here. I mean, I gotta give him credit, he had to give a great performance with a CG rat that wasn't even there for shooting. And we got a Pikachu voiced by Ryan Reynolds. In-game is more of a stereotypical gruff detective, but Reynolds plays him much like his normal voice. Luckily he plays him charismatically enough, but it does suck we missed out a bit on that. Well, at least they did try to get Danny DeVito like we've always wanted.
My mom, she passed away when I was 11.
Your mother is dead!
Unfortunately, this movie also suffers a bit from the video game movie problem where it's hard to sell aspects of the world to a new viewer. This movie does try and explain things as much as they can, it's just a lot to take in. A lot of newcomers won't realize the importance of the world nor the dozens of Pokemon that exist. And it's also a problem I don't think they can overcome. I mean, it's not as big a problem as the Mario movie, but it's still very evident. Point being in the first scene, which is oddly suspenseful, where we see a lab with no other than freaking Mewtwo. And yeah, if you're a Pokemon fan, you immediately know the significance of Mewtwo, but to newcomers, you just be confused. But at least the scene and atmosphere does let you know that this is a serious thing. Especially when after some figures flee, uses its psychic power to blow up the lab and escape. And then pursues the car and knocks out the road for our opening hook. Yeah, weirdly serious for Detective Pikachu. We get some gorgeous opening shots showing off some wild Pokemon. And yeah, I gotta talk about the most appealing thing in this movie. Seeing these Pokemon in our real world. Yeah, honestly, it's amazing. I love the Pokemon world shown in the games and anime. But we've all wondered what Pokemon would be like in the real world. And it's so rewarding as a fan to see it truly brought to life. And the Pokemon are freaking fantastic, like honestly practical perfection. It's a very evident line from realistic to uncanny that so many other things fail. Pokemon are very wild and diverse, and the cartoonist art style makes it hard for them to truly be adapted. But honestly, I think they did it pretty much perfectly, balancing out the realism while still keeping everything intact from the design and most of all, still feeling like Pokemon. And if you want to know just how good these look, just remember that the original Sonic movie design was shown at the same time. Yeah, needless to say, this looked amazing. Even if they're not believably there, they still give so much of the spirit and the design in the live action setting that doesn't really matter. They even got the legendary artist RJ Palmer, known for his realistic Pokemon designs, to work on how to implement Pokemon in live action. And even though most of his earlier work went way more into using actual animals and designs, they really were great to include, and it's awesome to see a fan getting to work on such a huge project. And yeah, major part of the designers and effects team, because it truly raised the movie and makes it feel like a dream come true. I only have minor complaints, like I always imagine Pikachu's cheeks being rubbery and not furry, and I did not ever imagine Jigglypuff as furry, and it's kinda creepy. But still, they look fantastic, and it's a complete joy to see all of them. But the movie continues with Tim being goaded by his best friend to catch a Pokemon for himself, a Cubone, which is honestly one of my favorites. And forgetting the words of Professor Oak where you need a Pokemon to get a Pokemon, and we see why after failing to catch it, it tries to attack him and makes you realize this world is kinda terrifying in real life. We also see most of Tim's friends have left town, as he's in a dead-end job as an insurance appraiser. Huh, insurance in the Pokemon world, how does that work? You think it's like standard Pokemon insurance? We get a call from Rhyme City Police that his detective father has died after an accident. And we soon see it was the car in the intro. And on a train ride he meets a very random Lickitung that does its thing, and god that is way too realistic a tongue. But we get an exposition video explaining the history of Pokemon and catching and battling with them. And is that a red cameo? Awesome! And then Howard Clifford, CEO of a massive company and founder of Rhyme City. His love of Pokemon that helped him through a degenerative illness made him found a utopia where people and Pokemon can truly live in harmony and no battling. And yeah, this is so freaking gorgeous! Like I can barely put it to words! The scale and size of the city, and all details in its designs, architectures, and corporations, making it feel lived in but it's unique from our world, with little Easter eggs here and there. Not to mention so many Pokemon just out and about looking as good as they do, and truly made this city and movie feel so alive. It's so amazing as a fan of the game to see the world brought to life before our eyes this way. Why does no one talk about this movie anymore? For the environment design alone needs to be appreciated. It's so absolutely beautiful and cool. Like come on, it needs so much more love. But back to the plot, Tim goes to see Lieutenant Yoshida and his Snubbull, who talks about how amazing his dad was and sorry about his death. He also brings up Tim wants to be a Pokemon trainer, but didn't turn out right. He tries to support Tim, but he doesn't really seem to want any, and just gets the keys to his dad's apartment. It's been shown that Tim has an estranged relationship with his dad, even if Yoshida tells him he loved him very much. And we get more gorgeous city shots. Honestly, it's great that we watch this movie and see just how many Pokemon they included even in just the background. But he's soon interrogated by a young wannabe reporter and her partner Pokemon Psyduck. Though she tries to act all tough and serious, it's clear she's really not as experienced as he tries to let on.
Top 10 cutest Pokemon.
Yeah, my grandma loves those.
Yeah, newsflash, they're all cute.
I don't know, a lot of them are pretty ugly. She's trying to get the scoop on what happened to Tim's dad as she believes he was onto something huge. But Tim really doesn't know or care about this and just walks to the apartment. And I seriously gotta appreciate the great lighting even in shots that really don't need them. But while looking through the apartment, he finds a vial of mysterious liquid that he opens and gasses up the place that he tosses outside and infects some nearby Apoms. And okay, I don't exactly like the Apoms. I mean, Apom is super cartoonish, and applying that to realism, I don't know, it looks too uncanny. Like, you can give him a bit of a nose or something with it, that just looks weird. Like the weird fusion of Stitch and Boots. Also, basic question, did no police investigate his apartment before? I feel this would have been standard procedure. As Tim just ignores that, he finds a letter where apparently his dad was going to invite him to live with him and promise he'll do better. And honestly, the things they introduced with Tim and his dad are really compelling and interesting, and I'm glad it was included in a Pokemon movie of all things where missing dads are practically a universal constant. We also learned Tim's mother died when he was young and he's lived with his grandma ever since. Kind of heavy stuff. Even Pokemon isn't free from broken families. But his introspection is interrupted by an intruder as he grabs a stapler. Yeah, this'll kill him. But it's none other than our titular Detective Pikachu, breaking the fundamental rule that Pikachu should never talk.
It's because...
Never talk. And yeah, he talks with the voice of Deadpool no less. Which the world has made clear is not normal.
Oh my god, this is amazing!
Don't you mean Arceus? And neither can believe it. But the Apons from before have gone feral. And I never considered Apon to be scary. If anything, they're quite punchable. But man, when you animate this way, this makes me think how even the most passive Pokemon would be terrifying if given the chance. which leads to a big chase sequence as Ryan Reynolds doesn't shut up and makes a narrow escape as the Apon returns to normal. Tim still thinks he's hallucinating a talking Pikachu and...
It's that stuff that I put up my nose. Not like that. No.
Okay, drugs exist in the Pokemon world. This is too much, man. But Pikachu finds out Tim is Harry's son and he was their partner Pokemon. But they go to talk over some coffee, which was a thing in the games, and I really love this movie's atmospheric lighting, like wow. We learned Pikachu had amnesia and followed the address to Harry's apartment in his hat, and he can't solve Harry's disappearance, he can't remember anything. Pikachu doesn't believe he's dead since he's still alive, but Tim just can't deal with being pulled into this random conspiracy and the talking Pikachu thing. Pikachu begs him to help since they can communicate with each other's species, and that this can't be a coincidence and his dad's alive. But Tim reluctantly agrees, and the next morning Pikachu mapped out a bunch of evidence leading to the mysterious vial Tim saw earlier, named R, which already should raise flags in some fans with some other foreshadowing. They remember Lucy from before might know more about the case as they go to C&M. And is that the original theme music? That's awesome. We see Clifford and his bratty son Roger also estranged as Clifford gets his Ditto to help him. And okay, Ditto being able to turn to people disturbs me.
Is there an unabridged version where you cure cancer?
Okay, there's a lot of things in this movie I'm uncomfortable existing in Pokemon. As they see Lucy's disrespected with the prospect of a new case, they go to meet up with her to further their case.
Oh, sweet mother of Arceus, that feels so good.
Okay, now Arceus exists, what gives? But they go to Lucy's quote-unquote office where Pikachu drops that Psyduck's head can explode if they get stressed. Which is kind of a thing, mostly in the anime, but it's more unlocking their true psychic powers. Why are they not Psychic-type though? What gives? Lucy has found more R vials by the docks as Tim and Pikachu go to the docks at night to gather more evidence and find a Mr. Mime. You know, I like Mr. Mime, they get way too much hate. And honestly, of all the Pokemon that could have been horrifying, I'm glad Mr. Mime was done the way they did because that would have been so uncanny. The dodgeball textures confuse me though, what are they made of? And here, Mr. Mime pretty much live in a pantomime world, leading to one of the most iconic scenes to interrogate him through their own miming. And they pour gasoline on him and threaten to ignite it? Okay, again, messed up for Pokemon. But then again, I guess any fire type would be even worse. But they get the location of an R dealer and probably burn him alive. We never see him again, so he's probably dead. It leads them to the Roundhouse, where Pokemon battles are held secretly since it's illegal in Rhyme City. And it's really nice that the movie does sneaking battles since they're such a staple of the franchise. It couldn't really work in the movie since it would take too much for the narrative and time, but it's nice to see them here briefly. It's pretty cool that they use moves from the game in live action, and Blastoise and Gengar look great. The two are followed by a mysterious woman, but they find the guy they're looking for with the R, who wants a rematch after Pikachu scarred his Charizard in the fight. And wow, Charizard's cool here. They'll give answers if they fight, which they reluctantly do. The dude also gives his Charizard a dose of R to intense his ferocity, and Pikachu also forgot all of his moves.
Get me the hell out of here!
I gotta remind myself this is Pokemon a lot. But Charizard goes on a rampage and Pikachu can't stop him, leaving for that guy's R vials to break and causes all the Pokemon in the vicinity to go insane as everyone flees. Tim forces the guy to confess that he gets the vials from the doctor, as the conveniently evolved Gyarados forces them out to police custody. Yoshida of course chews them out, but Tim is certain his dad's alive. You know, standard stuff for detective drama, so is how the doubting police force. But Yoshida reluctantly shows Tim the footage that no one could survive, as Tim's faced with the truth. And it leads to a really somber moment where Tim reflects seeing his dad's dead. He talks more about his past, and after his mom died, Harry went to the city to focus on his work, but eventually tried to get him to come back to him. But Tim didn't think he really cared, but admits he never gave him that chance. And now he never will. And wow, that's an incredibly powerful and emotional moment for this movie that does make it more than just some Pokemon adventure. There's a genuine emotional core to this movie that I think is fantastic and deserves more credit. And both actors play it brilliantly, seriously good job, and it does make them become closer. But they're picked up by the woman from before, Miss Norman, who's entirely silent, who takes them to see Clifford, who then evolves his Eevee just to make an entrance. I mean, why you have to plan that out, dude? I mean, it's a stone Evo, but still a lot of commitment. He wishes people could evolve like Pokemon to reach their true potential, and reveals that Harry was working for him, hiring him to find the source of R, which he states is from his son Roger. His life's work was to unite people in Pokemon, but also it drove a wedge between the two by his work, which is a parallel to Tim's family situation. He says he's to find Harry to stop Roger, which he confirms is alive using his randomly incredibly advanced hologram technology, and that Mewtwo is responsible. and also explains his deal to those who don't know, and was the one who took Pikachu's memory and Harry. And if Mewtwo got involved with this, you know things are going down, especially with the whole hating humanity thing. So now with the lead-in evidence of his dad being alive, need to go to Lucy to get to Roger. And that guy's still there. Was he just asleep for days? I do love how Lucy is just a complete dork and tries to play the detective part of herself when she really can't handle it. But she went through Roger's files to find a Pokemon genetics research facility that's shut down after an accident, coincidentally on the night of Harry's disappearance, that's been covered up. Plus potentially their former lead of the doctor creating the R for Pokemon mind control, so it's their lead they need to follow and drive their way there. Wait, drive? This is Pokemon, there's no driving. You either gotta walk all that way or bike, there's no in between. But they break their way inside, making me really remind of those times in the game where you go through the evil team's evil labs and find some Pokemon that have been experimented on, like Power Enhanced Greninja and Growth Enhanced Torterras that look normal. They also call them a Torterra Garden, which I love and feels like an actual scientific term in universe. But it's clear they're trying to manipulate Pokemon and evolution, which is making them wonder why. But they also see the chamber Mewtwo was being held in, and using the hologram technology from before that's weirdly a lot more visually interesting than it needs to be, they see that R is made from Mewtwo and that's how it drives Pokemon mad. They also made a neural link before Mewtwo escaped. But trying to figure out how Harry's involved in all this, it turns out Harry actually was the one who tracked Mewtwo down for this, to their dismay. But Roger's tracking them since, well honestly why wouldn't there be security, and sends the Greninjas after them. And wow, there's a lot of weird tongue things in this movie. Greninja without its scarf looks so weird. But the Greninja are on the attack as Psyduck's freaking out, but Pikachu realizes it's their only hope as they stress Psyduck out even more until it unleashes its energy and does something. Confusion? Sidekick? I mean they're dark types, I don't think that would affect them, but this is a can of worms. But they make it out as then, suddenly out of nowhere, all the landscape starts rising as they run for their lives as the earth is imploding. And it's a pretty big and epic escape sequence that I seriously did not believe they would survive. Like come on, he did not survive that. But what the hell even is all this? Well, it turns out the entire landscape was a kaiju-sized Torterra garden. Holy sh**. I know this makes absolutely no sense logistically or even in the freaking universe, and it's kind of pointless in the long run, but oh my god, that's cool. Like, does no one in Prime City notice this or the huge amount of civic activity? But as the Torts go back to sleep or something, Pikachu gets hit by a small rock and dies. Rock throw must have been a critical hit. Dude, get a potion or a revive, it's not a big deal. Do Pokemon Centers not exist? Like, I think Charizard immorted him and he was fine, this is kind of undeserved. But luckily a convenient Bulbasaur comes along and brings all their buddies to take Pikachu to a healer Pokemon. Like a Chansey, I don't know, Comfey? There honestly aren't many. As Tim follows them without Lucy since, I don't know, the Bulbas don't like her and her explosive duck. And hey, Morlul! I never liked you nor your creepy ass evolution. And yeah, it's all weirdly mystical and everything. Is that Flabébé and Comfey? But they actually get Mewtwo who uses Heal Pulse, I guess, to heal Peak. Mewtwo said he's glad Pikachu brought the sun to him as he then forces flashbacks into Tim's mind that Pikachu broke him out and he believes all humans are evil. But before he can continue, he gets captured by those things from the Sonic movie as Roger takes him away. The two don't really do anything about it as it cuts to them going back to the car. Okay, there's no way that facility was fine after all that Torterra stuff. And Pikachu believes he betrayed Harry and humanity and he's too dangerous to be around him. Tim, though, still has faith in him, really showing their bond, but goes to a third act breakup. Yeah, a little forced in all honesty. Also, Pikachu seems to have got his power back. But Tim goes to Clifford and Lucy goes to break the news as the city's getting ready for the parade. Meanwhile, Pikachu...
Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all.
Okay, nice callback, but how do you know what that is? Is the Pokemon anime just some slice of life TV series in this universe? But during sad time, Pikachu conveniently stumbles upon the bridge of the accident and finds traces of Greninja's water shuriken. Wait, how did no one find that? Yoshida, what team are you leading? Okay, but if these were water shuriken, then man, they must have some heat tracking on them. But I guess genetically modified. Still, that makes no sense on how Tim and Lucy survived them. But then pieces together that, yeah, Clifford obviously gave them manipulated hologram footage and he's pulling the strings to all of this. So yeah, Clifford was the big bad of all this. I consider it to be a pretty good twist. I mean, if you go all blame the most unorthodox person immediately without knowing any of their motives or plan route that annoys the hell out of me when people do that, then yeah, Clifford's a pretty big target. But going by the narrative, it's pretty good. They framed him somewhat of a sympathetic idealist, and especially had that his own relationship with his son paralleled our heroes. But you can see how his situation and idealism could twist itself into villainy, especially with what we'll see in a bit. He uses art to make Mewtwo mindless and used the Neuralink to upload his consciousness to their body, now as a vessel instead of his crippled one, and all the power it has. He revealed he hired Harry to find Mewtwo, but didn't expect him to reverse the steps to his true purpose, and was forced to silence him, but needed Tim to lure out Mewtwo. He says Mewtwo has the power to transfer the soul of a human to a Pokemon's body if the Pokemon's mind is crazed. Which has literally never been a thing ever until this movie, and is just insanely weird, but it's needed for the movie in this case. And I guess if any Pokemon can do it, it's gonna be Mewtwo. And therefore he's using the R on a city-wide scale.
The balloons. The R gas is in the balloons.
Well, someone was watching Batman 89. People wanted Pokefloats back, but not like this. Mewtwo wants to cure humanity by taking this philosophy so that people can evolve like humans by literally fusing them with people, hence why Rhyme City has people in Pokemon Unity and the whole partner thing the movie has. Okay, not gonna lie, this part of the movie kind of loses me. I'm getting like huge Sauron vibes from this. Actually, you know what? Maybe this is how Pokemon Mystery Dungeon happens. Mewtwo just shows a kid's soul in a Pokemon and teleports into a Pokemon society. Also, knowing the Pokemon fandom, a lot of people will be all for this. Also, Lucy gets fused with Psyduck, but luckily Pikachu shows up in the Pokesona parade and gets the exposition from her. But Pikachu gets his powers back and is pretty much the only one who can stop Mewtwo Clifford, and I love this frame. And we start to get a legit actual Pokemon battle here. It's awesome, so visually great and a sweet set piece. Actually, I joke about Pokefloats, but you can actually recreate this in Melee. And trailer shot that blew my mind. Meanwhile, Clifford just left Tim alone. Okay, why? He figures he can just take off the Neuralink to stop him, but in a legitimate twist I don't think anyone saw coming, he locked the real Roger away. And it turns out the one we saw was actually Clifford's Ditto all along. What? Oh, it gets better. They were also Mrs. Norman from before, hence why they didn't talk. And the reason they wore the sunglasses was because they can't shift the eyes. Which was only really a thing with one Ditto in the anime, but it's such an awesome detail that's been kept since. Yeah, okay, that is a genuinely fantastic twist and blew my mind when I saw it. Like, it didn't come completely out of nowhere, but no one could expect that. And yeah, having a hostile shapeshifter is not going well for him and gives us some genuine nightmare fuel. Honestly, I wonder if this Ditto was modified too, since it's kind of breaking a lot of the rules. But Tim's hanging on for dear life as Pikachu is inspired to use Volt Tackle that looks awesome to take out Mewtwo. And real Rod just knocks Ditto the hell out of the window. Thank God it's probably squishy.
What kind of a Ditto was that? That was one of my father's genetic experiments!
Oh, it was modified, neat. But oh yeah, it's a shapeshifter and turns into a bird to fly back up. It's like us doing more reused Pokemon assets. Until he gets blasted with R and dies, I guess. But before the fans can call out Pikachu beating Mewtwo as BS, the movie does so for you.
Feeble effort. A Pikachu cannot defeat Mewtwo in battle.
But Clifford seriously did not think through that his unconscious body is still very vulnerable, like how he could have died in the Ditto fight. And Tim easily removes the Neuralink to turn Mewtwo to normal. And yeah, everyone reconciles, Mewtwo reverses everything, and the day is saved. Clifford's arrested, Lucy is promoted, and Roger's gonna fix everything and cure the experiments. Yeah, good luck with that. But Mewtwo comes back, and no one really seems to care for some reason, and then reveals what I guess when they introduced the concept. That Mewtwo put Tim's dad in Pikachu to save him, and his dad was Pikachu all along, hence why only they can talk to each other. And then revives him too, and brings out the true greatest twist. That Tim's dad was actually Ryan Reynolds. I didn't see that coming. But as Harry offers to give Tim a ticket back home, of course, Tim refuses and goes to finally spend time with his dad after so long and go detective together. How heartwarming. But we end with maybe one of my favorite end credit sequences ever, with the scenes and characters redrawing the official Ken Sugimori art style. Like, oh my god, it's so freaking cool and absolutely awesome. I love it. Hell, I want one. I mean, I can draw one, but honestly, no matter how hard I try, I just never quite get it down. I hate it. Why? Yeah, honestly, I think Detective Pikachu is a great movie. I mean, I could call it a masterpiece, and it definitely has its problems, but I still think it's genuinely solid as a movie, and especially a video game movie. It's so unapologetically a part of the world that it's truly admirable. They really wanted more than anything to bring the Pokemon world to life, and it truly succeeded. With how amazingly they handled making Pokemon realistic and still kept so much of the designs in spirit, but also how it brings the actual world to life, feeling like it's truly a part of the world from the games, with so much love and passion for it. Not only its visuals, but its numerous callbacks and references to the lore. For a video game movie to do that, it's really amazing. Like, back to the first Sonic movie. I'll admit I'm not a Sonic fan, like at all, but I was not a fan of this. It didn't feel like Sonic. It was mostly just generic save the alien from government story, and even the aspects they did include, like the rings and Eggman, barely were like how they were in the games. Even Sonic you could replace with another alien that went fast like Accelerate, and probably nothing would be changed. I hear the sequel is much better and more game accurate, but honestly, this didn't feel like a video game movie or even a Sonic movie, and I don't think it deserves to be in the combo of pioneering video game movies. This movie 100% embraces the world and couldn't work at all without it. It's indisputably Pokemon. But even though it does have a bit of that problem where it's so engrossed in the world that newcomers can find it hard to understand, it still works as a movie by itself, with a fun and engaging mystery plot that takes the characters to multiple locations and explains enough that people should be able to understand the movie. But it also has a genuine emotional core and moments as well that help elevate it a lot more and make it so that it's compelling if you aren't a Pokemon fan. I recently made a video on the Mario movie and how it tried to be as faithful as it could, which sacrificed a lot of its narrative and understanding. But Detective Pikachu does that honestly a lot better and perfectly balances both. It's a fun, lighthearted adventure with some emotional moments and plenty of Pokemon content that fans, not even maybe newcomers, can enjoy. And honestly, it deserves a lot more love. I think it's one of the best video game movies to the point where it's actually more well known than the source material. It needs to be talked about and appreciated more. And I'd kill to see where a sequel can go, there's so much here. Though, I guess it would be hard to get a talking Pikachu back. I mean, we have to find another way to get him to talk.
I always want to be with you.
No, not that one. Never again.
Pikachu! Why are you doing this to me? Pikachu, why? Just look at all the